Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus with a look at Transformazing Toys' debut release, the Pandora's Box named Mebsuta. This Fall of Cybertron Ultra Magnus add-on has a long and crazy development history. Once a chunk of a larger and more expensive full-on trailer/base release, now trimmed down to focus on combination with a duly appointed enforcer of the Tyrest Accord. Transformazing Toys tried very hard to listen to as much feedback as they could, and that attitude has led to a ton of bullet points focused on build quality, going so far as to provide a tweaked copy of the Ultra Magnus figure's hip assembly with much tighter ball joints. Using a screwdriver to get things open, the hip swap is pretty easy to do. Transformazing even included a small pin pusher tool to help pop loose the mushroom-pegged thigh swivels. With all this stuff swapped around, the Ultra Hips of Ultra Magnus are better equipped to deal with getting all armored up. You could say they're better Ultra-equipped. The Mebsuta components had several tweaks made using some of the existing engineering from the original trailer idea to form two primary standalone modes: a simple tank and a jet sled. Both of these forms can be shuffled a bit to suit your own tastes. These are just my preferred configurations. The tank is the weaker of the two, but also the most obvious looking. It's pretty much held together by the cannon, and if you want, you can flip out some little wing panels to imply flight, or even fold open the tank to give it a slimmer and longer profile. It's the jet sled that really clicked with me. Looking like the top component of God's Xenon from Gridman, it's got a pleasant little standing pocket for Ultra Magnus to sit or stand inside, and enforce some justice from the skies. Yeah, both of these things are a little bit abstract, but they both look so Gridman to me, riding a very fine line, and in my opinion, kind of getting away with it. So there are a bunch of options for the small robot Ultra Magnus via the Mebsuta stuff, and I thought I'd just run through a bunch of it for you right here. Number one being, if you take this crotch right here, and you get this flap open, and you fold this crotch just like that to reveal the nub, you can stick this thusly. Now you got yourself a gun, what is also a pelvic crossbow. And who doesn't want a pelvic crossbow? Ultra Magnus is all hella cool with having a pelvic crossbow, because check it out, now he can be all like, kapow, 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 it's color thematic to my groin! There are a few other things you can do with this gun, like you can take this axe weapon for the larger robot. The thing about this axe weapon, this handle, this is a 6mm handle. That means that this guy can't actually hold it. And that means that the big robot can't actually hold these little handles. This is like a translator, almost. And this thing sticks on here. And now you got this big-ass gun, but little Magnus can't actually use it because the handle's too thick for him. However, there are other things we can do, like if you take this little jet-looking thing, and then you pop off the wings from the bottom and totally drop them all smooth-like, the way I did. These things have a means by which they can clamp to the underside of Magnus's gun into those ridges there. And now you've got a crossbow gun, what has missiles on it as well, so Magnus can feel so very empowered. But let's say you want to put some more stuff on. You take this rod from the tank and you stick this little ammo clip to the side of it, or the side of it. That's the middle of the assembled cannon thing we're making. Because now you've got this ludicrous giant missile-launching shotgun, Gatling gun thing that is so big that it actually really makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I have pride in Magnus again. Like he can deal with whatever he wants to, because look at the size of his weapon. I love it. The one other thing that I'm going to show you here is there are these little thingies, which are actually more for the combined mode. However, you can stick them like down here for the vehicle mode to give it like rocket boosters, or if you want, you can stick them on his forearms to give him like forearm armor, if you will. To initiate the combination, bust down the Mebsuta pieces into their component whatnot, and transform Ultra Magnus into a preparatory state for dealing with it. The legs use a very clever friction and tension setup to lock in place, and they need to be attached in a very specific way to hold on properly. The crotch piece tabs into 3 places, sadly lacking any kind of wraparound fasteners, but fairly solid nonetheless. Also, the add-on plates cover up the undersides of the feet. Up top, the torso piece basically wraps itself around Magnus and pointedly clicks, tabs, or pegs in place at least 9 or 10 times. I like the use of the base toy's vehicle bumper as a final closure on the backpack. The main problem I've hit with this is I don't know how to easily take it off. The underarm tabs are so solid they won't let go unless I really tell them, "Hey, let go of that man!" On the bright side, this also means it is not at all easy to accidentally detach anything from the upper body of this guy. What once was a deluxe figure often derided for its diminutive size has become 8.5 inches of super robotic justice enforcement. The silhouette of the fully Mebsuted Magnus is gorgeously super robot, wide and boxy with a broad-shouldered, hero-sized skeleton. He can come off looking a little long-legged, but I think that's mostly caused by his small waist and hips, which stem from the base figure. The sculpted details are primarily geometric ridges and layered vent work, with the trademark Magnus shoulder stacks and missile launchers having been run through a Cybertronian tech filter. All the paintwork is clean, mostly whites and reds added over a blue plastic that decently matches Ultra Magnus' own polymer. Overall, the colors skew hardcore towards blue over anything else, with white as a secondary color and red being used mostly for a few details. Some may prefer a Magnus with a higher crimson count, but when he's Cybertronianized, I find myself more into the cooler palette. And man, his head is a really fine piece of work, especially for a company's first outing. It's crisply molded with a lot of fine detail, and very strong paintwork to break up the blue and show off just how much sculpting there is on his helmet. The only thing I find myself wondering is what he'd look like with a white nose. I should dig up a name tag label or something and cut a strip to stick on there as a test. Except that I'm not allowed to use scissors anymore. Not after, Hey, let's talk about his posability. All good things begin with ball-jointed necks, and Mebsuta has a hell of ball-jointed neck. The range on this is enormous, and it gives him all kinds of possible emotions, like quizzical or angry. All these things commonly pointing themselves at people who are breaking the law. His ears also can wiggle. Yeah. His shoulders use a simple ball socket connection. Now, this does make their range look a tad limited, and you might be sitting there going like, "Oh no, it's code all over again," and then you lift it up and go, "Oh no, wait, there's another joint." This is something that comes from the transformation joints that are left behind in Mebsuta, and as a result, he actually has an enormous range of shoulder posability. You have to be okay with this panel coming up. I don't find it all that distracting, but this means you can get huge amounts of shoulder range, and when you have that happening in tandem with a big stack, it's kind of worth your time. There's also a bicep swivel. There is a double-jointed elbow, though it's not like a massive, like, arm-touching bicep curl. It does have a pretty good amount of range. It goes just over 90 degrees. Now, thanks to the rubbery hands, what are on big ball socket joints, the tightness of the wrists is quite good, and the grip is real solid, and you have a big range on what is basically a simple pop-off, pop-on ball socket. I love these Creo-style rubber hands. It makes me happy. Does me well. His waist is a ball joint. It's left behind from the original toy, and it's pretty tight when you have the new groinal bit installed. Gives you a decent range of left, right, up, down. And on a guy with a large upper body like this, there's a lot of dynamic oomph when you start doing things like this. Now, his hips are Ultra Magnus' hips. They are tighter because of the new piece, but they are also slightly limited in their range forwards and sideways. Well, sideways they were limited in the first place. Forwards, they can't go all the way up because they hit the crotch piece. And the crotch piece, since it doesn't wrap all the way around, it's actually not too hard to be moving the hips around and then bump the crotch piece off. It goes back on pretty easily and pretty solidly, but it's something to be aware of. And if there was one thing I would love to have seen added to this toy, it would have been like a band back there just fastening that on completely. But otherwise, you've still got a thigh swivel here. There is a knee joint, and then there's a kind of knee joint. So there's a knee joint, and it's a big old ratchet. Like, delightfully ratcheting. But it is also kind of easy to start bending the knee joint on the original toy. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it can afford you a kind of pseudo-double-jointed knee, but some may want to have this just staying together, and that's a case of the original toy not really having engineering that locks it together. So, I can't really see what could have been done. There's no real room for anything to clip on back here. It's something that has to be dealt with. It is really easy to just hold the leg and bend the knee. Now, these ratcheting knees are delightful, but as I mentioned, when you are combining this guy together, you have to make sure you install the legs properly, because it looks like you can do this one of two ways, and the way that is easiest would be to put this into that hole and then swing this up, and it will click in, but it won't click in solidly enough to actually use the knee joint without it coming out whenever you do so. What you need to do is actually stick this part in first, like this wedge in here, and then go back here and push that into the hole there. Now it is dead solid, and you can bend knees to your heart's content. His ankles have a big range of posability thanks to a ball socket joint and a transformation joint that lets them do that. So, yo, they tilt, insert line about tilting ankles. And things are going to get a bit fig arts here, because this guy not only can toe, he can ratchetingly toe. His toes have ratchet joints which actually feel even tighter than the knee ratcheting joints. That's kind of awesome. If you really want to get him in a walking pose, you got that option, although his feet are so flat and wide, I way prefer just plunking him down like this. And while we're here, you know, talking about posability and plunking, I'll mention the plastic quality one more time. It's super good. The build quality is great, the plastic is dense and thick and does not feel cheap whatsoever, and this guy can totally take a few spills. The only thing that might fall off would be his crotch plate, so be ready for that. But let's give him a try. Let's get Tetrajet on Mebsuta's ass and show you that... Holy crap, he landed on his feet. Okay, let's try that one more time. He stayed standing for a few seconds. If he actually had, like, rubber grips down here, I think he wouldn't have fallen down. Yeah, he's pretty well built. Nothing's really coming apart. The crotch piece is actually being quite a tripper here. And Mebsuta is built like a tank. And this is kind of impressive given that this is also a collection of parts bolted onto an existing toy. So when it comes to build quality, Transformazing Toys are champions here. They know what they're doing because this stuff feels good. Like the head. If you look at all the crispy little details on that head, if you grab that head and squeeze it like I like to do to my neighbors often, it feels dense and tight, and all the edges are nice and sharp and crispy. So, I really like just holding this thing and rubbing it on my fingers and occasionally on, well, why don't we continue on? While he starts off with fists, Ultra Mebsuta can pop him off to swap in a couple of other options. The hands are all rendered in a rubbery plastic similar to Creo robot build heads, and it is the best lesson to take from Creo and apply to other toys. The hands feel dead solid, super grippy, and nigh indestructible, and they can store inside the Mebsuta legs, avoiding the need for keeping the box or a baggie nearby. The closed fist hole hands are made to hold the axe weapon, or any of the gun modes that can stem from its beefy 6mm handle. The ammo clip pieces for the larger gun builds also store happily inside flaps on the combined formed shins. The open hands have actually got the same 6mm socket in their palms, and are meant to sideload and grip the staff form of the Mebsuta rod piece. Its shaft form has a 5mm socket on the head, allowing you to attach the Magnus sword to create a badass halberd weapon. But since it's 5mm compatible, you can stick all kinds of things up there. And man, somebody has got to make a compatible giant hammerhead for this thing. It's the law! Look it up, they wrote it right into the Tyrest Accord. Ultra Magnuses need giant hammers. End quote. But hey, even unarmed you can reveal a couple of panels of missile spam. And thanks to the base figure's fist and leg holes, there are a few spots to store some of the weaponry when it isn't in use. The single most important thing about Mebsuta is that it is a debut piece with a fit and finish that knocks the quality baseball out of the park. Transformazing Toys have made a smashing first impression with this piece in terms of assembly and polish, with nothing feeling rickety, loose, fragile, or cheap. Whatever they do next, I am paying attention, because they know how to build a goddamn toy. They just gotta use 5mm hand ports next time. The 6mm stuff, I don't know, man. The elephant in the room, though, is the question of alt modes. There is no trailer form to be made from these pieces, though the unifying trailer hub may yet see future release if things go well, along with the crazy huge God Bomber thing hinted at on the instruction sheet that I would really like to see. However, the Mebsuta parts have got a lot of engineering built into them, and the primary tank and jet sled formations hit a very specific aesthetic that ended up working for me. The example I will repeat with American names this time is that they totally remind me of the vehicle components of Xenon from Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. Magnus's Cybertronian video gamey aesthetic is a big boon to this, legitimizing their abstract visuals and supporting the implied functionality. They're as alien vehicle as you can get, but they go far enough in shifting their shapes to satisfy me when I look at them as support drones for Magnus to use in battle. And regardless of their vehicular potential, Mebsuta's combination turns Ultra Magnus into a fabulous super robot action figure, with a good suite of features and very cohesive integration. Going so far as to provide onboard storage for bits like the ammo clips and alternate fists is a great bonus, but the core of the combined robot form is incredibly solid. There's a strong aesthetic, good posability, and pretty tight durability. It's a love letter to the FOC Magnus figure that I thought only myself and a crazy few would ever want to write. Just next time, make his crotch plate wrap around. No rear on your underpants is kinda drafty. But as with many things Magnus, the Pandora's box armor is also available in Optimus Prime colors as Mebsuta, so if you are more of a red and blue collector, you've got options. But I am totally on board with this as an Ultra Magnus piece and recommend that fans with the budget to dip their fingers into premium add-ons consider picking up this set. It is a tad pricey in an indie transforming toy era dominated by standalone figures, but Mebsuta's build quality and sheer solidity goes a long way in filling out its cost. Also, stack up the mass of Mebsuta next to like 3 or 4 of those $20 or $30 parts add-on kits, and ignoring its incredible build quality, the cost does start to make a bit more sense. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I hope this video has helped you in your own considerations of things transformazing and toy. Many thanks to them and RobotKingdom.com for their hands in setting up this review. If all goes well, I am very eager to see exactly what the giant silhouette on the instruction sheet turns out to be. And either way, I need more hammers for this Magnus. That's the sound of my finger tapping the desk to punctuate what I'm saying.